What's up? What's up? Training Talk 2022, October 10th. Welcome, everyone. Let me know that y'all can hear me okay, that audio is coming through correctly. As y'all notice, I am solo tonight. So I'm looking for y'all's help, guys, girls, guys. Want y'all to join into the show as much as possible. Make sure you're dropping questions in, anything you'd like to discuss overnight. We will be going through conducted energy weapons. I'm looking forward to it. Specifically, we're talking about the Taser brand devices and mostly the civilian line of them. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight. So welcome to the show. You know, as y'all noticed, I am flying solo tonight. Unfortunately, Deryck Poole is lacking internet connection. If y'all are familiar with Deryck, you know that he lives down in the southern Florida area, just about an hour south of Tampa. And so they were in one of the hardest hit locations for Hurricane Ian, unfortunately. And so he was kind of just not far northwest of the eye wall coming through. Thankfully, the damage to the house was limited to things like shingles and whatnot. And unfortunately, loss of water and stuff, but obviously loss of power and stable internet or internet in general for several days or potentially weeks. So to just be just me tonight, but welcome to the show. Y'all be thinking about Deryck. Hopefully, maybe he'll have an opportunity to jump in and be able to comment if he can get internet at all. But I know his main internet line is completely down. Tonight's show is brought to you by Primary Arms Online. They're running a special right now on the website, $20 off your first order. If you have not ordered for them before, drop your email address in when you get on their website, and they'll email you that coupon code. I actually have a great new site here from Primary Arms Online. It's the Primary Arms. It's the 3X Prism site. Super excited to get that set up on the Nemo rifle. Look forward to doing some testing here in the coming days, coming weeks. Had it out on the range yesterday. It made life pretty easy. Sighting it in right there, at 100 yards. So I look forward to getting some more opportunities to do some testing on that as well. As y'all know, we just finished up the Personal Defense Network training tour for 2022. Lots of instructors teaching in many, many different states and even some out of the country as well. Just a quick glance of looking at instructors holding classes. There's definitely dozens of them that took place all over the place. Everything from obviously defensive handgun and carbine classes, long range or designated marksmanship or designated marksman courses. Don Edwards teaching his variants of night vision classes, the night fighter classes all over the country. I saw Alessandro Padavani teaching handgun, carbine, I believe, or ketabine, as he would call it, as well as his knife defense classes. There were all kinds of opportunities, everything from medical courses to fighting classes, all over the place. If y'all didn't have an opportunity to jump in this year, obviously we're already planning the dates and locations to set up for the 2023 training tour that will take place, and even more great instructors I believe are going to be joining us over the tour next year. So hopefully we'll get y'all on there. Let me know y'all are tuned in. Let me go ahead and start paying attention to the chat box as well. I see Rick is coming in. I know Rick's down in Florida as well. Hopefully Rick, you made it out all right during the storm. But if y'all have got comments and whatnot as we go through, or comments or questions as we go through the conducted energy weapons, like I said, don't hesitate to drop that in. I'll try to pay attention to it as much as possible and make sure that I am addressing it. I've been messing and working with and really teaching conceptually about the Taser devices since I think about 2012, 2013. But have really been paying a lot more attention to them over the last several years. Last year, worked with Axon Taser to receive a instructor certification with it, and most recently was one of the few instructors that were invited to be part of the inaugural uh, master instructor certification class on the civilian devices. And so it just came back from their headquarters in Scottsdale, here a week or two ago, and went through, a little bit of extra training to be able to come back and be able to offer this course to other instructors that are, looking to teach this to their students and whatnot. Obviously, we talk about a lot of firearms-based defense on this program, and there are times where that's obviously the only answer. And we use those tools when it is an absolute necessity. And I think it is a good thing at times to have a less lethal option as well. Kind of the whole, if the only tool you have is the hammer, then everything starts to look like a nail, right? And so it is good to have other options available. The good things about the conducted energy weapons is that they are legal in almost every single state, although some states do require licenses to be able to carry. But they are almost legal in every single state, to be able to own and to possess and whatnot. There's plenty of people, and maybe even people tuning in tonight, that really don't have an interest in the firearms-based response, but are more interested in something, like a less lethal option. So we're just going to kind of go through some of the basic concepts and features, and go through, a couple of the devices as well, and talk a little bit about the technology and whatnot. A lot of people, when they hear the word taser, they start to think more about the movie interpretation of it, or the movie display of what we see displayed with a lot of stun gun devices, contact weapons. We've seen them, the stun guns, all over at different sporting goods stores, at gun shows. Obviously, those are the devices that are almost like a cattle prod, right? They have to be used in contact. They make a loud arcing sound as the electrical current bounces back and forth between the post. They're loud. They can be effective, but the stun gun ultimately is only effective when it is in contact, which means you have to be in contact to be able to protect yourself with it. And the moment that it is no longer making contact with the aggressor or with the attacker, then ultimately it stops working as well, and provides them more and ample opportunity to come in to continue the aggressive behavior. And so what we're talking about tonight with the conducted energy weapons is a very different technology than your typical stun guns that you see. So we'll kind of go through and talk about some of the differences with that. Yeah, obviously, all of this is, for educational purposes only. There's, it's a ton of information. I only have a certain amount of time to be able to discuss it. So there's only so much that it will be able to get to and to be able to go through tonight. So I can't stress enough to actually jump into one of the certification classes if you have an interest in owning, obviously carrying the conducted energy weapons as well. I do have put together just a couple of images. So let me see if I can get this shared up here to the top. Move this around a little bit. So this first device let's change this up a little bit. Well, one more. Get this fixed where it actually comes through properly. on your end, and then we'll kind of get that back up. Sorry about that. The fun of technology, right? There we go. So this is the Strike Light 2, from Tasers. I talked about the stun guns. So Taser actually does make a stun gun device. They first had the Taser Strike Light 1, and this is obviously the 2 that they just came out with this year. You can see in the hand about the size of it. It's designed to kind of be a flashlight that you can carry around indiscriminately. It works like a flashlight. It's about 700 lumens, so it's definitely usable, like a flashlight. It has a red light. It has a lower beam white light, and then of course the high mode on the bright light. As mentioned before, stun guns do have to be used in contacts. This is not going to be the answer for everything, but for somebody who is interested in the stun guns, these can work very well. And obviously, it can be effective psychologically when it does start to make the noise. But we don't depend on psychological stops. We depend on the technology for being able to make the attacker stop doing obviously the bad behavior, the attacker stuff. But it is usable. As we get further along in the show, I'll throw out a discount code if anybody's interested in getting 15% off, these devices as well. But as mentioned, we're going to get more into the conducted energy weapons. There's a big difference on the conducted energy weapons. This is a picture of me just after being exposed, or right at the moment of being exposed to a Taser 7 CQB. Here, Taser 7 CQ, excuse me, here, a couple of weeks ago. This is the better looking picture. I can definitely tell you that they are certainly, effective. And I was able to get firsthand experience to see exactly how effective they were with being exposed to it when I was out there in Scottsdale. And obviously, y'all seen all the, the different videos of the different devices, being deployed with law enforcement. The civilian line is really the exact same technology that the law enforcement devices work on. They have different cartridges. They're effective to different lengths, and they're different devices, but ultimately they're all using the same technology. And we'll kind of go through and talk about some differences between those. I'm not sure if this is going to end up showing up, or not in the video. But ultimately, the Taser conducted energy weapons do end up deploying, out these different probes, right? It fires the probes, and it fires two probes, and they are designed to come out on an angle from one another, where one is firing straight, the other one comes down at a downward angle, to where it is creating deviation between them, a spread, between them, where the closer, or the further away that it gets from the device, the more that spread opens up. And really, it's that spread and some of the other patents that exist in the device of what separates the stun gun from the conducted energy weapons. So something like that strike light that I had up on the screen a second ago, that works in contact, that's a single point of contact. And like I said, it can hurt. There's some electrical current that certainly penetrates into the muscle some, but it's all contact pain. And, obviously some people are able to fight through contact pain. And so with the conducted energy weapons, the difference is with the 2 points of contact, you have the spread on the probes, and it's using the in-between area, or using the body to be able to complete that circuit. And so the electrical current is then completing the circuit through the actual attacker itself. And so rather than having that single point, it travels through the body. When deployed properly, it can create what's called a neuromuscular incapacitation. Really, it interrupts the signals from the brain to the muscle, and that's where you have seen the subjects kind of almost look like a fainting goat, where they buckle up and fall over. Where the muscles end up, pulsating and tightening and locking up. And so they are extremely effective. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about a 100-pound attacker or a dog or a 350-pound attacker. It's effective on everybody when things are set up properly. And so we'll talk about some of those limitations, next couple of minutes as well. But with that spread, and it passes that electrical current through the body, where somebody can lose control over the affected muscles. And so best case, is they're losing control, over really most of their body with that spread, where it causes the person to end up, eventually falling to the ground or falling over, right? Like I said, we've all seen those videos. But you've probably also seen the videos of failures, where you saw the taser get deployed and nothing happened. And it takes both of these probes making contact to be able to complete that circuit. And so if by chance, with that deviation, if one of them ends up missing the attacker or doesn't make good contact, then it could be completely ineffective without adding an additional point of contact, such as with the handheld device itself, which is obviously covered during the training sessions and whatnot. No, these do have a 50,000 volt kickoff with them. 50,000 volts sounds like a tremendous amount of electricity. But really, when you think about picking up like a plastic bag that's very staticky and poppy, that could be 20, 30,000 volts in itself. Or, walking across carpet and touching the light bulb. Again, you can have high voltage on that. But tasers using that high voltage to help create that arc or to complete that circuit. So these don't actually have to make contact in the skin to work, as long as they're with at least or less than an inch, from the actual person, then it can complete that circuit. Meaning if they're hung up in the clothing, it can actually still be effective to be able to complete that circuit. But they're high voltage, but very, very, very low amperage. So less than 0.0018 amps. Right? That's not a lot at all. You're talking a lot less than, like an LED Christmas light bulb, right? So not a tremendous amount of amperage, which is more of the dangerous part, or the more dangerous part when we're talking about electricity, over something like voltage itself. And so they can be effective, but like I said, they can also fail. Now, I've watched a ton of different videos of deployments, of successful deployments and failed deployments. And it seems like more often than not, it ends up being more of a distance issue, meaning maybe somebody's too close where we don't get the spread, and you end up with more of just the probes making contact very close to one another, to where it doesn't have, remember, the electricity is just, simply completing the circuit. And so if the contact is made very close to one another, that completion is not going far. Therefore, the effective area or the effective muscles are going to be reduced down to just the distance between those two contact points. So you can be too close, but I've seen several deployments that have happened where they're too far away, and you end up with so much deviation that one of them actually missed the attacker, or potentially both altogether. And this is one of the distances that they are effective, is one of the differences between the law enforcement line and the civilian line with the taser conducted energy weapons. On the law enforcement line, they can have a longer distance associated with the available cartridges. that come with it. But on the civilian line, they are limited to 15 feet. And so these have been cut off. You can just see the wires that are in there that would be attached with 15 feet of wire to the actual probes themselves. And so on the civilian line, like I said, it's only limited to 15 feet, which means if you deployed it at 14 feet and the person fell backwards, it could potentially pull out or even potentially break the wires themselves. Or if the attacker was at 15.5 feet, then obviously you would not have enough wire to even be able to reach them all together. Now, most defensive attacks we know do end up taking place at about 9 to 15 feet, but Taser does have it limited to 15 feet on the civilian line, but a little bit further out than that on the law enforcement line as well. And so most of the deployments, like I said, the failed deployments that I've seen, a lot of them end up being related to a distance issue, or potentially could be related to an angle of the taser issue, because they are having deliberate deviation that happens at about a 8-degree angle. So you end up having about 12 inches of separation for every 7 feet on the civilian line. Ideally, what we're looking for is, go back and let's see here, jump forward just a little bit. Ideally, what you're looking for is ultimately a spread of about 12 inches, or at least really 12 inches what it needs. That in an ideal aiming point with these, splitting the belt line. So if you can imagine a belt, just above the crotch area on this target there, we would ideally prefer one of the contact points to be above the belt line and one of the contact points to be below the belt line. And so we're teaching people to aim these devices, which have lasers on them. We're teaching them to aim, off center, just above that belt line, to be able to aim in that area to where they end up one in the thigh, and then one, above the belt, or one in the lower back, one down in the buttocks. That's the ideal or preferred target zone. Obviously, with self-defense, things don't always go that pretty, and you may not have those preferred target zones available for different reasons, or they're just not going to be the easiest route that you have. So Taser, of course, wants us to avoid targeting any of the areas in yellow that you see here, which is the groin area, the face, neck area, and chest area. The chest area, like I said, these are very, very low on amps, high voltage. But when it comes to the electrical currents or electrical pulses around the heart, obviously the further away from the heart, the safer it is, for the results of the attacker. Now, there's been over 8 million deployments of tasers in real life circumstances. The injury rate is extremely low comparably, but obviously there's always the chance of something. But if you can avoid those areas, it's always best to avoid those areas. But with the areas in yellow, one of the big reasons to avoid them is the lack of muscle mass. You need the muscle mass in order to have a good NMI, or neuromuscular incapacitation. The muscle mass is very beneficial and helpful for that. And so that's a big reason why we're also trying to aim away for the areas in yellow. But splitting the belt line is going to be the preferred method. Like I said, just off center. And so going back to the failed deployments, you can have one that goes perfectly, but maybe the angle of the taser was not set up properly to where one of the darts ended up dropping in between the legs or something, and so that could lead to a failed deployment where you are going to lack NMI because you only had a single point of contact. Like I said, you can do what's called a drive, stun, and follow up to put the device into a muscle to create a second or a third point of contact, if needed. But it's obviously best to be able to set yourself for success on the targeting side of it, to begin with. But that's where we're targeting. So if you can imagine flipping the person around on the back, there is more muscle, obviously on the upper back, and that can be targeted, but still preferred to split the belt line, because with a good spread, you're going to have the largest effect across the body with a much more successful NMI. And so that is going to be the preferred method in working with that. All right, I'm going to go through, just a couple of the devices. This is the Bolt 2. The Bolt 2 ultimately, it just came out here, in fact, it came out at SHOT Show this year in January. I probably talked about it a little bit earlier on in the show. It is the newest version of what originally was the C2. So this is a C2, very similar device, not firearm shaped, more remote control shaped or flashlight shaped. This one, it's been discontinued for several years. It does still work. It does completely still activate on there. The flashlight, the laser, all that still works on there. You can see that it even still arcs well as well. So that device, still works, but the newest device is going to be the Bolt 2, from Taser. Happen to have one of those too, laying around here. The Bolt 2 came out in January this year. It does have blast doors on the front of the device that come off whenever you activate it. And so you can see that kind of falls off the front end of it. And it also activates the laser that can be used for aiming, as well as the flashlight that comes on as well. So you can see that's arcing back and forth. I think that this video, if I remember correctly, this clip goes on for about 30 seconds because that's how long this thing arcs for. It's 30 seconds long. And, and that's another difference between the civilian line of Taser conducted energy weapons and the law enforcement line. So all of the law enforcement devices are a 5-second cycle. And so they all start off with that 50,000 volts, but they cycle for a total of 5 seconds. Now, some of the devices, if you intentionally hold down the trigger, will go longer than 5 seconds. Same thing on the professional line of the civilian series. And some of them automatically and mandatory will cut off at that 5 seconds, but obviously, could be re-energized again by pressing the trigger a second time. So the law enforcement devices, 5 seconds. The civilian devices, 30 seconds. So why the big difference? Well, we're talking about, the Taser law enforcement devices may be used for different reasons at different times, but on the civilian device, we're talking about self-defense only. And with that, the idea from Taser is, let's give you a 30-second head start to be able to get away from that aggressor, to where if it was safe, you could set the device down and have 30 seconds to run. Now, look, I just did 5 seconds from the Taser 7, just a couple of weeks ago. That 5 seconds it's not fun when it first happens. It feels like you get hit in the back with a 2x4 from someone, and while you can process information, you're fully aware of everything going on around you. That's still a long 5 seconds. And so I can't imagine what 30 seconds from one of these devices feels like. But the idea, like I said, is you can set it down. And Taser will even replace your device. If you set it down and leave it and don't get it back, the Taser will literally give you a new device to be able to replace that one. So they've got a guarantee, on that with it as well, with all of the civilian lines. But this is like I said, it's the Bolt 2 from Taser. It's got a flashlight. It's got a laser. It has the blast door cover on the front end of it. And as mentioned, when you activate it, that pops off. Now, one, that could be something psychological, grabbing someone's attention, but additionally, it works as a not a holster, but it protects the cartridges from any sort of static discharge. That if you had it in your pocket, there is that cover there to be able to work. But it has the activation device here, which is the safety turning it on and off. But when you activate it, the lights come on. Oh, I don't have the battery in this one. That's right. I was traveling with it, so the battery's out of this one. But the lights come on when you activate it along with the laser. And then the second button here is to be able to energize it to deploy it. When you do, it fires out the 2 darts, and it will continue to go for 30 seconds unless you turn the switch off or press the button a second time. And obviously, or maybe not obviously, but you could energize it again if needed by pressing the button again. So the cartridges can only be deployed once, but they can be re-energized certainly if needed. But it's a pretty good device to be able to work with. Lots of people don't want the firearm shaped devices. They want something that they can have in their hand walking to and from the car. And so this can be a really good fit with it. Taser has an app that goes along with this device as well that you can use to connect to it. It does 2 things. Well, really, the main thing that it does is it will automatically notify. First, it'll notify Taser's contact center that the device has been deployed. And they will immediately try to contact you to see if that was an accident or not. And if they don't reach you, or you don't answer the app or any of that, then immediately they will contact 911 and give them the GPS location of where that device was deployed. And obviously, it does require a connection to the phone via Bluetooth. It does require some sort of data connection. Like the cellular or like a Wi-Fi connection or something. So it does require those pieces to work properly. But that is a pretty good feature to be able to have, where help's already coming, regardless of whether or not you've had the opportunity to be able to call for that. So they do have that app that goes along with it. It's a pretty decent device. Another device that has been really popular, and this is honestly probably my favorite one, is the Taser Pulse. They have the Pulse line. So technically, there's a Pulse and a Pulse Plus. They're still fully supporting the Pulse Plus, but have discontinued it. But this is the Pulse line. Now, this one does not connect to the Taser app currently. However, the Taser Pulse Plus does connect to the Noon Light app that gives you the same features or similar features that the Taser Axon app has on the Bolt 2. It just, this came out, the Pulse Plus came out before, they came out with their own app. So maybe we'll see something in the future that looks like this that works with the Taser Axon app. But the Pulse device is firearm shaped. It's small. I don't think I have a picture. Yeah, there it is in my hand. So you can see, it's small for someone who's familiar with the ergonomics of a handgun. Obviously, this is going to be very similar. It has sights across the top of it, traditional post and notch sights to allow for aiming, if needed. It has a safety lever on there. It is in the down, that is safe. When you push it up, that activates the device. It turns on the red aiming laser, also turns on the flashlight that goes with it. And it uses these cartridges, which there's one that has not been deployed. It's in a shipping container for safety. But it has blast doors on the front end of it to be able to work with. But this, the C2 that I talked about earlier, the Bolt 2 and the Pulse Plus, they all use that same 15-foot self-defense civilian cartridge. But the ergonomics of it, like I said, similar to a firearm, aims like a firearm, carries like a firearm, but it is a less lethal tool. It's obviously not a firearm. This, to me, this is my personal favorite, at least on the current line, for something like concealed carry. If you wanted an alternative to the firearm, simply because I believe it conceals the best between the Bolt 2 or the Pulse line. So I do like this device. It's one of these that, like I said, is very familiar with anybody who is normally around handguns and familiar with shooting handguns. It's going to be a familiar device with them. Now, the downside to it is it's shaped like a firearm, which means to others it could look like a firearm. Well, that could be a plus side if your attacker think it's a gun, but it also could be a negative for others around trying to judge your behavior in the aftermath of you pulling that out or even deploying it in a self-defense situation. The confusion could be up for somebody to think that you have a gun and that you're a gun attacker kind of stuff. And so that's the downside to it. But the upside, like I said, is it's going to be very familiar for those that are already, carrying or training, with that kind of stuff. So I do like the Pulse line, and think that you will as well. If you're familiar with that, you can see I just activated that. No, it's arcing across the post from post to post right now. There's not, one of these cartridges in it. So technically it could still be used like a stun gun, in that feature. So even after this is deployed, if for some reason the wires broke or something else happened, that still could be used in drive stun mode because it still works like that. To me, it penetrates deeper than, and I guess I didn't even, let's see, I didn't even bring this up. There we go. But to me, it penetrates deeper into the muscle than what the typical stun gun devices do. So to me, from just my personal experience and research with it, it seems to be more effective in stun mode, drive stun mode, than a traditional stun gun would be that you would see at a gun show, that kind of stuff. It goes deeper into the muscle. With that, as well as Taser holds, several patents on the different devices that they have. One of which is the frequency of the electricity that is being used to begin with, so it can actually work, extremely well. They also, that's the main two models right now, or main really three models from the civilian line. Would be the Strike Light 2 in the stun gun, the Bolt 2, and then the Pulse line as well. So that's the main three devices that you're going to see in the civilian line. But then they also have a professional line that has this X1 in it, and it has the new Taser 7 CQ. The X1 is not really marketed or sold towards most civilians. It is marketed and sold towards security. And so that's who you see that are using this a lot more. This uses the same cartridges of the X26 line, which is the law enforcement line. But this one, they dropped out a couple of features to make a little bit more affordable. So this is one of their devices in the professional series. It does not have a flashlight. It does have a central information display in the back of it. I thought I had a video on that one, but you can see the display there. It's not showing up anything right now, but what you will see on that display is you're going to see battery. You're going to see any faults or errors if there were any. And additionally, you're going to see a timer that will show you how many seconds that the device has been activated. Now, this one is similar to the law enforcement line, that it will automatically shut off after 5 seconds unless you are holding down the device. Just checking something real quick here. So I know last month when we were running the videos, the live stream, there was an issue on YouTube uh, as we were pushing that out where it wasn't going live, unfortunately. So everybody was trying to view on YouTube. It was not going live. I'm actually looking at the viewership and concerned that that's also happening right now. So just making sure that if y'all are watching on YouTube, let me know because it could be that it's just, yep, that's exactly what happened. Is it unfortunately was still hidden again. So technology, right? I apologize for that. Anybody who is tuned in on YouTube and is trying to watch, we are live now. Thankfully, you will have the ability to go back and watch the show again. But unfortunately, it looks like it was being hidden from view until now. All right. Back on the X1 from the professional series on the civilian line. Like I said, central information display on the back shuts off after 5 seconds, but if you hold it down, it will continue to count up and still continue to be energized. The device here, you can see the size of it. This is just B-roll footage from a while back. You can see the size of the cartridges, the size of the device in my hand. You can notice it's a little bit larger than the pulse line with that. And so when it comes to carrying it concealed, it could be something where, ultimately it ends up being bigger than you want. Still 15 feet that you're working with, still the same technology behind the cartridge as well. So it's there could be arguments that you may prefer, obviously the pulse over that. This is the Taser 7 CQ. Taser 7 CQ, this thing's a beast. It's definitely a workhorse. The latest line on the law enforcement series is the Taser 7. So this is very similar to the law enforcement line. They call it the CQ, designed for close quarters. Now, remember I said earlier in the video, I said, with the Taser conducted energy weapons, you really need 12 inches of spread, between the two probes or the two darts as they come out. So you need to have that spread. And you're getting that spread on the civilian devices at about 7 feet. So really, about 7 to 10, 7 to 12 feet max is your range that you're working with. Well, sometimes attacks end up, taking close or taking, end up happening, right, closer than that. And one of the biggest issues on the law enforcement side is a lot of their attacks were actually taking place much closer, than that 7-foot range. So when they came out with the Taser 7 on the law enforcement side, they came out with a shorter range cartridge that instead of having an 8-degree angle of separation, it has a 12-degree angle of separation, which means you're getting your 12 inches of spread that's needed at a closer distance of about 4 feet. So it's spreading much faster. Now, that can be good and bad. Obviously, if you're up close, that can be good, but, if you are further away, then obviously that could be a bad thing as well. But the Taser 7 CQ would be like the elite home defense line, for using these devices, closer up and working with it. Now, the neat thing about the Taser 7 CQ is it has 2 cartridges that go in it. And so you're not just, don't just have one shot to be able to deploy it. If for some reason you did not make contact into the person or within an inch of the person, into the attacker, if you did not make contact with one or both of those original darts that were deployed, then immediately you can follow up with a second deployment of a second cartridge. Now, if you did make contact, then you could also use the second cartridge if required, but it would be pretty chaotic if you were dealing with a second attacker. Or, if needed, you could deploy the second cartridge into this first attacker, into that original attacker, getting more points of contact. Well, more points of contact, if you end up with 4 points of contact, it doubles the pulse rate of the device. Now, the device is pulsating very quickly, 22 pulses a second quickly. So that's very quickly that it's pulsating. But when you end up with 4 points of contact, it will double that and go to 44 pulses a second. And when I'm meaning pulses, think about your muscles, being lifting weights, right? 44 times a second kind of stuff, right? So you're really, you're getting a lot of energy and a lot, of an effect that is taking place, with the attacker. So the Taser 7 CQ is a really good line. It is more expensive to be able to get it. Additionally, it's bigger. And so when it comes to trying to conceal this device, it's kind of like the person, like right now, I'm concealed carrying a full-size gun, right? Most people aren't going to carry a full-size gun. Maybe y'all carry a full-size gun, but I've worked with thousands of students over the years, and I've definitely noticed it's more the exception than anything. And so when I look at, concealed carry, and if I wanted to do that, either something like the Pulse or the Taser 7 CQ, well, there's a big difference in size there. And so obviously it was a device that was designed to be carried outside waistband, as a law enforcement alternative form of force, as a less lethal option. And so, it's some people maybe won't mind concealing it. Plenty of people will mind carrying something that large. But it's definitely, it's a workhorse of a device. It's a great device. I like it. It has a laser. It has a flashlight, as well. This also was the one that I was exposed to, not the specific one, but I was exposed to a Taser 7, when I was exposed, to when I was at the Taser Master Instructor course a few weeks ago. And like I said, it's super effective, but it doesn't matter if you're talking about the Bolt or the Taser 7 line, or you're talking about the Pulse. They are all very effective devices, using roughly, the same technology between them as well. But all of the devices, like I said, they can, be very effective. They can work very well. They, certainly have limitations, just like, firearms would, or OC spray, or anything else. And so it's important to, to understand those limitations and to get training with them, and to practice with them, and I forgot I've got all the X1 and all that right here as well. So if you want to see like a comparison of the sizes here of all of them together, it's kind of hard for me to hold all three devices. All three of these don't have batteries in them, but you can see, the sizes and whatnot of them and the way that they are. The Pulse comes with its own proprietary battery that if I remember correctly, is about $30. Now you should get 50, full 30-second cycles out of that. The X1 has a magazine style battery that comes in a few different options depending on what you're after. And then the Bolt 2 comes with a carrier that holds the CR123, batteries for that. But all the devices, they work extremely well. They, the price range, on the Bolt 2 and the Taser Pulse are around $400 to $450. The X1 jumps up. It's the professional line. And then the Taser 7 CQ jumps up even from there. They are, all available on Taser's website at taser.com. And I told you, I promised you I'd give you a coupon code. And so if you want 15% off, on your order, all you have to do is use my name, Barret Kendrick. Use it all one word as a promo code when you go to checkout, and you'll get 15% off that order. at least for now, for that limited time, right? But my name is Barret, last name Kendrick. All together is that promo code for 15% off. That pretty much sums up, the devices, how the basics of how they work. If you want to learn more about them, drop the questions in the comments. I'll definitely try to make sure I'm paying attention to that and answer that. Or jump in a class. If you're in my area or one of the areas where I'm holding courses in, then typically it's only about 3 hours long of what we're doing. I usually reduce down the devices that we're talking about, obviously, through there, but you're getting the opportunity to go through some drills, to deploy the cartridges as well, to get really familiar with them and whatnot. But if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask with it. Again, I'm flying solo tonight. Thank y'all for tuning in. I mentioned tonight's show is brought to you by Primary Arms Online. And they are, fantastic store. Like I said earlier, I actually just got this in the other day, and very excited to be able to spend some time getting familiar with the 3X Prism Primary Arms site as well. But the show tonight is brought to you by them. Last time I checked their website this evening, they were running a $20 off coupon for first-time buyers. So jump on the website, take a look. I'm excited to have y'all on tonight. Looking forward to next month's show. If you've got something you want Deryck and I to talk about, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. Other than that, y'all have a wonderful evening.